Good afternoon, my friend. I ask your indulgence as once again I engage your attention upon the gruesome subject of war. Indeed, it is with great reluctance that I prolong this discussion. Nevertheless, a press of circumstances makes it inevitable. During the course of this address, it will be my privilege to disclose information which seldom levels down through ordinary channels to the general public. It is my duty as your spokesman to present it to you in this emergency, to the end that it will guide you in your decisions and stimulate you in your actions. We Americans have been victimized by some invisible forces which are determined to embroil us in war. Have these same forces employed their power, prestige, wealth, and influence in behalf of peace and prosperity to the same extent? I am confident that our 12 million unemployed would be working at profitable wages, and that our 22 million dolesters would enjoy economic freedom. I do not remember in my lifetime when public officials and newspapers expended so much effort in propagandizing for war and thereby serving, either wittingly or unwittingly, the hidden hand of destruction. Nor do I recollect when so little publicity has been given for the removal of the causes of our domestic depression. Who wants war? The millions of little children attending our schools? The neglected youth of our nation who are searching in vain for profitable jobs and despairing of establishing a home of their own? The fathers and mothers whose chief concern always has been life and never death? The exploited masses of labor, victimized by prolific promises of politicians and deceived so frequently by unsound labor leaders? Who wants war? The patient agricultural class whose farms have been confiscated and whose productive acres have been made barren by an insane program of destruction? Who wants war? The small businessmen, industrialists, and homeowners who are almost taxed out of existence as they bear the burdens of the last war? Oh, elsewhere let us seek an answer to our question, when more than 95% of our population abhors the very sound of that word, war. And this is democracy, when 95% of our fellow citizens have their minds tortured, their emotions aroused, their passions agitated by no more than 5% of internationalistic warmongers and their publicity agents, whose main concern is not assisting America back to prosperity, but to achieve the destruction of the so-called totalitarian state, to perpetuate the peace treaty of Versailles, long since repudiated by the United States Senate. If we are a democratic people, shall we permit ourselves to be used like putty in the hands of those responsible for the half-truths, the warmongering which appear in our press? When the catchphrases "unjust aggressors" was employed to stir up your righteous wrath against Germany and Italy, were you conscious of having read the whole truth about unjust aggression? How many newspapers printed the story of Great Britain's seizure of Nigeria in 1886, of Somaliland in 1887, of British East Africa in 1888, of Rhodesia in 1889, of British Central Africa in 1893, of Uganda in 1896, and of South Africa in 1898, seizures totaling more than 900,000 square miles, seizures which were instigated and conducted more ruthlessly than those accredited to Italy and Germany during the past 2 years? Who were responsible for this questionable silence over that period? Not the people resident in England, not the people of the United States, but the scheming internationalists, descendants of the father of lies. Did they inform you that France, the other great democracy, captured Tunis in 1878, Annan and Tonkin from China, and Laos from Siam in 1887? Did they refer to the subjugation of Madagascar in 1896, and to the unjust aggressions committed against Djibouti, Dahomey, and Morocco at a later date? Aggressions which netted the French Empire more than 670,000 square miles? Certainly they did not, because they were more interested in regimenting the sentiment and the youth of America to fight a war for the preservation of their gold control, of their status quo over the peoples of the earth. By reminding you of these lurid historical facts which besmirch the pages of modern history, I am in no way condoning the conduct of the modern dictators, but I am reminding you that the same policy of seizure and exploitation is dominant in the world today as it was yesterday. The same catchwords are being used to deceive the common people. The same propaganda is issued by those who dominate both governments and nations, the hidden hand of the internationalists. Who wants America to play even a remote part in the impending European clash, which appears to be inevitable? Ask the leaders of the League for Peace and Democracy. Ask the munition makers. Ask the internationalists who shuttle gold back and forth across the Atlantic. Ask the Jews and Gentiles who refuse to oppose communism as they do Nazism. Ask the well-known private banking houses which bought and paid for the Russo-Japanese War, the same banking houses which arranged for American credit to finance the World War, always at a profit for themselves. Oh, possibly they could tell you, they who escaped the horrors of the trenches, the withering fire of the machine gun, and the discomforts of the concentration camp. But do not ask the members of the American Legion who are your neighbors. Do not inquire of the broken-hearted Gold Star mothers whose names have been exploited. And do not expect an answer from the disillusioned victims who languish in our hospitals, or their buddies whose bodies long since have rotted on foreign soil. This campaign to embroil America in a world war was carefully planned, weighed, and timed for this opportune moment. Now that democracy seemingly has failed in America because it was irreverently wedded to international capitalism, the schemers plan to destroy our form of government, to substitute for it an absolute dictatorship by pleading with you ill-informed people to save democracy. Oh, but their single purpose is to perpetuate international capitalism. That is a serious statement. Nevertheless, I can substantiate it with the following facts which cannot be gainsaid. Therefore, permit me to answer the first question, who wants war? And the second question, why do they want war? By unveiling for you certain government plans which have been kept in secrecy, more or less, since 1922. There is in Washington at this moment an industrial mobilization plan. It is the government's plan which forewarns us what will happen in these United States the moment an emergency or a war eventuates. It proposes to take over not only all material resources, iron, coal, oil, and cotton, but the control of all industry, trade, and commerce. Every working man will become an employee of the government. Already the nation has been divided into 12 districts with regional headquarters of the War Department to be located in each. Already the operation of 20,000 American factories has been charted. Already more than 12,000 American industrial plants have been assigned to various Army supply branches. And these industrial plants, through their executives, have signed an accepted schedule of production. Of these things, the majority of you in this audience has not been informed. The government industrial mobilization plan provides for several administrations: war, labor, trade, financial, price control. These statements, my friends, are no figments of fancy. True, they have not been disclosed to you American people, although they are absolute facts which those who preach to you of the virtues of democracy already had conceived in order to destroy the last vestige of democracy. Moreover, this present administration at Washington has arranged to conscript both capital and labor, big business and little business. It proposes to license every activity from a munition plant to a confectionery store, to nationalize all means of communication, the press, the radio, to control all newspapers and public speakers. In its plan, already written and awaiting execution, although you don't know it, the only liberty left to the individual will be freedom to think, but no freedom to express his thoughts. My friends, if these statements which I have just made about the present administration were not true, statements, however, which are supported by the congressional record, this would be my last appearance before a microphone. Quoting the Honorable Mr. Schaefer of Michigan and the congressional record of April 24, 1939, we read quotations. The industrial mobilization plan recognizes only two classes of citizens: those with the armed forces and those at home who must provide for the maintenance of the armed forces. Nor will the women of these United States be exempted from this military tyranny planned at Washington and conceived by those who dominate the New Deal, the Hidden Hand. Under the title, Women Wage Earners Division, of this government plan, we read the following startling statement, quotations. In normal times, there are approximately 10 million women and children over 16 years of age employed in industry, commerce, and the professions. The specific mission of this division is to divert the greatest possible number of these women to munitions and essential civilian industries, unquote the document. My friends, will that sentence which I have just read arouse you ladies to action? If war comes, oh, let every woman in this audience recognize that she and her sister will be herded about like cattle at the discretion of the War Labor Administrator. The New Deal plan does not omit children from its dictatorial grasp. One paragraph of this hidden document reads as follows, quotations. While the employment of children under the age of 16 years in industry or agriculture will be avoided wherever possible, it must be recognized from the beginning that the nature of the emergency may require such employment in its later stages. And you good people are apathetic, and some of you will say this is imagination. You innocent Americans are not willing now, before war eventuates and before a Neutrality Act is passed, you are not willing to bestir yourselves to keep America for Americans and to preserve George Washington's policy of no foreign entanglements. My friends, I am disclosing to you a document of which you are ignorant. A plan already prepared for your enslavement under the title of democracy. What is your reaction? If in the face of the paragraphs which I have read for you, you cannot envision what is in store for you as a result of your apathy, there's no hope left for you. Can you not foresee the passing of democracy under the false front of preserving democracy? Can you not see the rise of a ruthless dictator who is a servant of the gold hoarders and a puppet of the invisible forces, will herd the women of America, will separate mothers from their children, and compel them even to a greater degree than they were compelled in Russia to serve in munition factories? Can you not envision the closing down of schools when children, even under 16 years of age, will be forced to become cogs in a machine for murder? Do not accuse me of exaggeration. Oh, yes, pious words will be spoken from executives denying these statements, but those pious words cannot destroy the existence of this New Deal plan. In addition, I quote the congressional record again, in addition to the power to commandeer lives as well as all resources and supplies, bills have been introduced in Congress during the last few years which propose to give the president not only absolute control of our entire national economy, but the unlimited access to the federal treasury. Recently, Congressman Schaefer of Michigan said, "Day and night American ears are dimmed with demands that we join the democracies in a holy crusade against the dictatorships. Day and night they tell us that we cannot have peace unless we are willing to police the world. Oh, they'd have us believe that we cannot be prosperous people until we become murderous people. In the name of humanity, they chant a hymn of hate. As champions of man's highest ideals, they appeal to his basest passions. They call for peace, but they sow the seeds of war. Although the president and many of his unelected appointees speak with a finality about our policing the world and righting all things, are you American people willing to concede that you have abandoned your right of petitioning your senators to pass a neutrality bill that will safeguard our policy of no foreign entanglement? Yes, May Day processions will be held by the communists who hate your Christianity and your Americanism, the same communists, the same League for Peace and Democracy, whose only loyalty in the Spanish Civil War was to Satan and Sovietism. And what have you been doing to counteract these processions, these demonstrations, this warmongering? Have you been contributing to offset this offense of Bolshevik destruction? My fellow Americans, Bolshevism is international. It is anti-God and anti-Christ. We have permitted it to take the offensive here as it did in Spain. Oh, yes, these are challenging words for you who still believe in your Christ and his cross, in your Constitution, and in our flag. The time has come when patience ceases to be a virtue, and when the hour is struck for you to take the offensive. These words which I have spoken are a challenge to you. You whose lives and futures have been blueprinted, whose destinies have been defined in the paragraphs of the international mobilization plan accepted by the New Deal administration. In conclusion, may I quote for you from the congressional record the stirring words of Mr. Schaefer, who said, "Gentlemen, from millions of lips in America, the word war falls. In thousands of newspaper columns, the word war appears. Over the airwaves, night and day, the word war vibrates. Of what do we speak when we utter that word war? Blaring bands, martial airs, gaudy uniforms, ringing cheers, the rhythm of marching feet, the glint of sunlight and shining bayonets and polished guns, the skies darkened by flocks of airplanes, the air drumming and vibrant with the drone of mortars, panoply, parade, oh, but back of all that, what? The unutterable ache, the unplumbed agony of human hearts and human souls, as fathers and mothers bid farewell to their loved ones, as they go marching away, never to return. In the fields of Europe, the mud and water and vermin and stench of the trenches. Men, clean men, unkempt, unshaven, cold, literally drunk from loss of sleep. Hopeless, waiting in the darkness before the dawn for the 0 hour to go over the top to death. Sleek, audacious rats, trench rats, fattened on the flesh of the fallen, scurrying along the trench ways and brushing the feet of the men whom in a few hours they will devour. Above the greenish light of the rockets, the hellish thunder and roar of cannon, the rattle of machine gun, and across a sea of mud churned into muck by the feet of fighting men, mixed with the mangled bits of flesh of those who were the beloved of you American fathers and mothers, go the men whose bodies are blasted into mincemeat to be churned up in the blood and mud of no man's land. And out yonder as the great dawn brings the hour for a new struggle, torn bodies hang limp and grotesque and mangled on the barbed wire entanglements, the bodies of your sons. And over all the awful mist of the early morning, rising from their carnal earth, comes a stench of death in the nostrils of the living. That, my friends, is what we talk about when we pronounce the awful word war and listen to the propaganda of keeping the world safe for democracy and international capitalism safe for those who profiteer upon death. More than 20 years ago, we Americans participated in a war to end wars. No 20 years in all history has seen more wars than those which have elapsed since the signing of Versailles. Therefore, to avoid war, we must muzzle the warmongers. And to muzzle the warmongers, we must take the offensive, not the defensive. The offensive against the Bolsheviks in our midst, the pinks, the reds, the radicals, who are overturning America and overturning our morals. And this offensive means that everyone in this audience, together with his friends and neighbors, will petition his senator to uphold the principle of no foreign entanglements. And this means no Bolshevism parading under the name of a political party. No communism, no Nazism in our midst, cost what it may. Therefore, I challenge you, let us organize today to drive them all from America. Free speech does not imply the right of radicals to employ free speech in order to destroy free speech. And free America does not mean that this nation shall become a haven for the world revolutionists. America and radicalism, Christianity and communism cannot abide side by side.